I thought I'd pop in and say hi. Haven't seen you in a while. Wanted to make sure you didn't forget my face. It's M. Rob, the math elf. Check out my cute little bow. Made it myself. When I'm not doing math, I'm doing a craft. Okay, I got nothing else cute to say, so let's do some math. This year, I decided to hand out my Christmas gifts a little early, Thanksgiving Christmas gifts. I got everybody a little something. So if you are remote, I will message you and leave you one of these at the front office. I thought we could all use a stylus. So anyways, today's lesson is on writing out the proportional equation. It is on the harder side a little bit. It's a little wordy. Whenever it gets wordy, it gets harder. So there's some notes at the top. Proportional relationships, as we know from our other lessons, and we are still doing the same thing, have a constant ratio or unit rate. The letter that I use for the constant is K. The constant of proportionality is K. And it is another name for unit rate. And it is the Y divided by the X, Y over X. The Y depends on the X. And if you do cross multiplying, which I taught in another lesson, and that would get you this equation, which is the linear equation, instead of what I'm calling the unit rate equation. So it would be Y equals whatever number you have for K times X. So I have a word problem here with several questions that go with it. So when I go through the word problem, if I hear something that seems important, I'm going to highlight it. If you don't have a highlighter, then you just circle or underline it. Your mother has accelerated onto the interstate, beginning a long trip, and you noticed that you have half a gallon of gas left in the tank. I heard a number. You don't see a number, but I heard a number. It said half a gallon. Not every number you can see is important, but this one is going to be important. I have a half a gallon left in the tank. Okay. The nearest gas station is 26 miles away. Your mother keeps a log where she records the mileage and the number of gallons purchased each time she fills up the tank. Use the information in the table below to determine whether you will make it to the gas station before the gas runs out. You know that if you can determine the amount of gas her car consumes, consuming meaning uses, in a particular number of miles, then you can determine whether or not you can make it to the next gas station. Oh, and there was another number here. That gas station is 26 miles away. And the big idea, the big question that we're going to underline, questions are normally at the end. I want to know, will you make it to the gas station? Truth be told, this problem was probably written before all these newer cars come out. For Pete's sake, cars, I don't know why I can't talk today. It's not Friday. Cars pretty much drive themselves. Not only do they drive themselves, but they tell you your gas mileage at a particular point or for a particular trip. So you don't have to do MPGs, mile per gallon, using math. You just press a button for it. I also have a button that tells me how many more miles I can go before I run out of gas. Truth be told, that's not ever really accurate. It'll tell me I have 50 miles, but I really only have 20. So you can't always trust technology. But your mother's probably not making a log, but in any event, you could do something like this. And somebody did do something like this, and that's how it got programmed into your car to begin with, because somebody did take down the data and find the patterns so that when you press the button, it can just tell you the answer. So even though we might not do this stuff every day, somebody did it and programmed your car. So it's still real life. So she wrote down for 8 gallons of gas, it took them 224 miles. When they used 10 gallons of gas, they had gone 280 miles. 4 gallons of gas was 112 miles that they went. It's out of order, but it doesn't really matter. I want to know the constant of proportionality. That's a key word. And it has a formula. And I want to know, explain what it means. What does it mean? I just got showed a video with Miley Cyrus where it was some kind of meme about math class, and she's screaming, "What does it mean?" I'll have to attach a link to it. I promise you that. So constant of proportionality is the K. Y over X equals K. I need to know which one is Y and which one is X. You can assume, if you are going to guess, the X is the first thing in the table and the Y is the second. Let's see if that makes sense. Do the miles I drive depend on how much gas I have? Yes, it does. The other way I like to think about it is which one came first. You must first fill up your gas tank before you can drive anywhere. So X will come first. It's independent. So we're going to take the Y value, 224, and divide it by its associated X value. And if it's a constant of proportionality, it will be the same every time. So I'm going to do the other ones too, and I wonder if they're equal. Now, go ahead and put that in the calculator. When you put that in the calculator, do you get the same number every time? Yes, it is equal. It is 28. Now, when I say explain what that means in this situation, I want to know, is it, what's the units? Remember, the Y was miles, the X was gallons. Anytime I divide, I can say per. So this was miles per gallon. Miles per gallon. They can go 28 miles for every 1 gallon of gas. All right, now we're going to write an equation, the linear equation, that will relate the miles to the gallons of gas. It told me, Simon said, use M for miles and use G for gallons. So I'm not going to use Y and X, at least not for my final answer. I am going to write down my equation from my notes. What happens when you move X out the way? Y equals KX. It's my equation way. Okay, so this is the equation. K is the constant of proportionality. Let's substitute in for that. We had a number. What is the unit rate for 1 gallon of gas? It's 28 miles for 1 gallon of gas. That's my unit rate. The independent variable was gallons, which they told me to use G. I don't have to write a time sign in between a number and a letter. And the Y, the dependent variable, is the miles. The miles depend on the gallon. So let me see, did I answer the question? Write an equation to relate the miles to the gallons. My miles are 28 times the gallons. 1 gallon would be 28 miles. Check. Knowing that there is a ½ gallon left in the tank when the light comes on, will she make it to the nearest gas station? Explain why or why not. Now, one of the reasons why I like math is there's normally more than one way to do things. But let's go with the flow. If I have, and by the way, sometimes I can't count. I have A here and A here. I labeled these, so it should be A, B, C, D, E. If I'm moving on to the next part, test taking tip, it probably uses whatever I did last. The last thing I did was write an equation. So I'm going to copy this equation down. This is a ½ gallon. Gallons is G. Let's substitute in for G with half. We're going to substitute. I want to find what is the miles. The miles are 28 times a half. What's a half of 28? Use the calculator. Half of 28 is 14. Let's write the units. Miles. Now, I did some math. Let's see if I actually answered the question. Always go back. Explain why or why not. Well, what am I explaining? I'm explaining, will she make it to the nearest gas station. Okay, that makes me ask myself, how far away is the nearest gas station? The nearest gas station, it said, I remember I highlighted it, was 26 miles away. We can make it 14 miles. So 26 is greater than the 14. The 14 is less than the 26, whichever way you want to write it. So is that a yes or no? Nope, not going to make it. No, 14 is less than 26, or 26 is greater than 14, whichever way you want to say it. Only make 14 miles. Alright, next problem. Using the equation found in part B, determine how far your mother can travel on 18 gallons of gas. Solve the problem in two ways. One, use the constant of proportionality, and another one, write a proportion, and the other one, use an equation. Okay, so this will be my proportion. I'm just going to label. Labeling helps me be neat. And this is my equation. The equation we just used was 28G. Proportion we went over in another lesson is when two ratios are equal and you want to label the units. One of my units is miles, the other one is gallons. If you label them different than me, that's fine, but they have to match. So all my miles are going to be where it says M, and all my gallons will be where it says G. So it said, we found out it was 28 miles per gallon. And when I don't say the number, when I say per gallon or for a gallon, it's 1. And I want to know what, let's see, they gave me a number. It was 18 gallons of gas. So the 18 is going to get substituted in for the G. So here's G. I'm going to put 18 here. And a lot of times when we don't know something, we like to use X, which is exactly why we do not use it as a time sign anymore. So I like to put an X there. Looking for the miles. I can put X here, or I can leave it as M. I can use X, or I can use M. But I am going to take that G out and replace it with an 18. I am very carefully also going to use parentheses. Whenever you substitute, you should use parentheses. If you don't use parentheses at all, that's going to say 2,818 instead of 28 times 18. If you didn't know it, this is an implied multiplication, and if you didn't know it, you could still put it in the calculator because the calculator knows that that's multiplication. Okay, so I wrote a proportion, I labeled it, I filled in the constant of proportionality, 28 miles per gallon. I filled in the constant of proportionality, 28 miles per gallon. This is where the constant goes in the equation, y equals kx. So if I'm going to solve a proportion, there's, again, more than one way to do it, but I'm going to go over cross multiplying. Cross multiplying says x times 1 is going to be equal to the other product. Product of the means equals product of the extremes. I never actually say that because it just sounds kind of confusing. Means and extremes, the ends of these things. X times 1 is just another way of saying x. Anything times 1 is itself. This is why we learn the properties. And 28 times 18, which is right here also, is how much? 504. 28 times 18 is 504. And what are the units? What were we looking for? We're looking for the miles. So this is the answer. Whichever way you look at it, cross multiplying or regular substitution into the linear equation. Okay, we got one more section of this question. Using the constant of proportionality, which is 28 miles per gallon, and the equation we have from before, how many gallons of gas would be needed for 750 miles? Now, I'm not going to use the equation like this note says. I'm going to stick with the proportion because I don't want to get into a lot more algebra. So we'll stick with the algebra that I've already taught, which is this proportion. This proportion compares miles and gallons, so I'm going to label it M and G instead of writing the whole word out. I know that if for every 28 miles, it will use 1 gallon of gas. I was asked how much gas would I use, underline the question, for 750 miles. So the 750 is going to get substituted in for miles, which I said would be written up top. I don't know the gallons, so I'm going to put X there. You can do equivalent fractions, but I'm going to get in the flow of cross multiplying, so circle this diagonally, 28 times X, which is going to be equal to 750 times 1. Oh, it is more algebra than I wanted to do. It's okay. We can handle it. 750 times 1 is 750. When I don't know what to multiply by, I work backwards and do the inverse of multiplication. What is the opposite of multiplication? It is division. In Math 7, we often do division in the form of a fraction bar instead of the old school line with the dots. So, I'm going to divide by 28 because it's the number next to X and I'm trying to get X by itself. If I don't know what gets multiplied by 28, then I'm going to take the answer and divide it by 28. And because it is an equation, I will do equal things to both sides. I will divide by 28, which helps me because anything divided by itself is 1x, and then 750 divided by 28 is my answer. I'm going to put this in the calculator, and you're going to get a decimal. I'm going to write down what I see. Now I got an answer, so I go back and I reread. Using the constant of proportionality and then using the equation, oh got it, determine how many gallons of gas. So do you think it's appropriate to round? Do you think you're going to go to the gas station and then totally let go of the pump at 26.78571429? Probably not. You might be able to stop the pump at 27. So let's round it to 27. This is the approximate symbol. Approximate is rounded, and let's write the units. Gallons, and then I always like to box in the answer, especially when I did a lot of work. Okay? Neatness counts more than you might want it to, but neatness counts. Alright, now we're going to go to the other side. I'm going to do one more problem, and then you guys have the homework, which is the leftovers. Now I am using the same tools for all of these problems that were written at the beginning of the notes. Constant of proportionality, the equations, and what the deal is with the graphs. But I can ask a whole lot of different questions. It doesn't matter. As soon as it says proportional or proportionality, I'm going to use those tools for the job. Andrea is a street artist in New Orleans. She draws caricatures, cartoon-like portraits. You know, like in that commercial for that insurance. There's some guy there with a big hat and a sub in his hand, and he's like, nah, that doesn't really look like me. That commercial, that's a caricature. People have their portrait drawn, and then they come back later to pick it up from her. The graph below shows the relationship between the number of portraits drawn and the amount of time and hours she needs to complete the portraits. Notice that if you have a graph, you should always have a title, label the y-axis and the x-axis. They didn't use y and x. They used n for number of portraits and t for time. Time is almost always on the x-axis, and there it is. Time is independent. Nothing really affects time. Time will go on. Time always wins. Time doesn't change. Write several ordered pairs, which is just a fancy way of saying coordinates, otherwise known as points. We're going to write points from the graph and explain what they mean. When you go to find a point on the graph, you want to do one that is easy to read, that crosses the grid perfectly. No guessing decimals, okay? Try and find some whole numbers. If I go straight up from 1, does this cross the grid perfect? No. How about 2? Does this cross the grid perfect? Looks to me like it does. Remember, coordinates go x before y. It's alphabetical. Excuse the noise there. Coordinates go x before y, so how much do you run before you jump? So it goes to the right 2 and up 3. So this point is 2, 3. 2, 3. Instead of using the x and y, let's use the letters that they have here, which is T and N. And they said several. Several definitely means more than one. Let's see, 3 doesn't cross very well. 4 does. 4, you go to the right 4 and up 6. Remember, you want to write the T before the N because it's x before y, because it's independent before dependent. Are there any other nice points on here? This one looks nice. And then I got 6, 9. And let's see, did I answer the question? Write several ordered pairs? Well, 3 should be good enough. Explain what each one means in the context of this graph. This one means T is 2. So she spent 2, what's time measured in? Minutes? Hours? Does it say? Time in hours. There it is. I had to look for it again. She spent 2 hours. I mean, that would make sense, right? Who draws a really nice picture in 2 minutes? She spent 2 hours. What's this 3? N, number of portraits. To make 3 portraits. It said to did it say explain what each? Aw, man. You want me to write it for all of them? All right, let me teach you what we used to do back in the day. We used ditto marks. She spent 4 hours to make 6 portraits. Mrs. Roberts says this is okay. You can do it. Ditto. Ditto means same thing I had before. She spent 6 hours to make 9 portraits. Ditto means same thing I wrote before. Write several equations. Equations have equal signs that would relate the number of portraits drawn, remember that's the letter N, to the time spent drawing the portraits, which is the letter T. So, again, let's use our tools. Y over X equals K. Show up on my screen. There you are. Okay. I'm not using Y, I'm not using X. I'm using N, which depends on the time. And when I divide it, what do I get? Well, I don't know because I didn't do it yet. So give me an N. N. Give me a T. T. Hey, did I write an equation? Sweet. I did one. They said to write more than one. They said to write several. I can use different numbers. I can do 6 over 4. Is it the same thing? Yeah, 6 over 4 simplifies to 3 over 2. I could move X out the way. I could move the T out of the way and do like this equation. Y equals Kx. K, my constant, is 3 over 2. 1.5. I'm not using X. I'm using T. I'm not using Y. I'm using number of portraits. This is another equation. This one works. And again, what if I didn't want to write a fraction? I can write a decimal. That's 1.5. I don't have to write the time sign. I just felt like it. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I wrote 4. That should be good. Now, it's kind of weird that they're asking me the constant of proportionality now because I already did it. Well, I guess I would be appropriate because, like I said, test taking strategy. If I'm asking you this now, it probably has something to do with what I did before. Constant of proportionality is K, which is this number right here. The constant is 3 to 2. Explain what it means. The 3 represents the number of portraits. She makes I'm supposed to use 3 portraits in 2 hours. I think they want for 1. What is it for 1? Okay, so, or that would mean she makes how much in 1 hour? Am I spelling portraits right? So if you want 1 hour, just divide this. 3 divided by 2. You get 1.5. She can make 1.5 portraits in an hour. Okay? There are 5 questions. I believe it's 5 questions on the next page for you to do on your own. Okay. When you're done, you can go make your own barrette. Or if you're not into crafts, play Fortnite. All right. I'll see you later. Have a good day.